Well, hello there, friends, and welcome to another episode of the 360 Experience podcast. I'm your host, Tim Brahim, and today I will sit with a friend and a terrific loan originator by the name of Holly Walther. Holly is originally out of Marietta, Georgia, and now is in Augusta, Florida. She is a mother of three and an incredible loan originator. Check out these numbers. In 2021, that was her best year, which it was for most. But Holly funded over 500 loans and over 170 million in production with her and her team back in 2021. But I think what's even more impressive was what Holly did in 2023. In 2023, they funded 70 million in production, which I don't need to explain to you. Those are some great numbers, some of the best that I know of in the calendar year of 2023, especially when you take into consideration that her loan amount is only about $300,000, her average loan amount. She is a terrific networker, somebody who brings a ton of value to her real estate partners. She is going to share with us a little bit about how she is currently working within the NAR ruling, how she's helping real estate agents cultivate their presentations, what her presentation is like to real estate agents, and how she's remaking herself, having just relocated to Florida and generating new relationships with referral partners. But we're going to go in a different direction as well. We're going to talk about what it's like to be a terrific loan originator as a female in this industry, and how she balances that with being a mom and being a wife. And that's not to be underestimated, because wearing those different hats and carrying different energy into your workplace and then into your home life is a dance, right? And it's a delicate one. And she's going to share some of the things that she does to make sure that she is at her best, which will include her morning routine, her health and wellness routine, et cetera. So buckle up. Get ready. We're going to talk for a little over an hour. There's going to be a lot of notes to take here. Holly is a member of the faculty of the Loan Atlas, which I'm very proud to have her as a colleague there, and a terrific teacher, and she's going to bring a ton of value. Before we begin, I just want to ask you to please forward this to anybody that you know that would benefit from it. We thrive on downloads and subscriptions. If you're not a subscriber on your favorite podcast channel to this show, please do so. We're always looking to grow our subscribership base for the purposes of being able to find more and more great guests for you to listen to. Very much looking forward to your comments, if you have any, on YouTube and or any other platform that you're watching this on that can provide comments. And without further ado, my conversation with Holly Walther and the 360 Experience. Well, welcome to the podcast pantry, which is the new name of this show. How are you?
I like that. I'm good. Good. Pleasure to be there. Pleasure to be here. I mean,
it's a pleasure to be. Yeah, I would say pleasure to be there. There's not enough room in here for the two of us. When you come to my house in a month to do some recording for the Loan Atlas, you'll see what I mean. And for those that don't understand this inside joke, this recording studio that I have at my home is quite small. So we've coined it. Holly just coined it the podcast pantry. So, hey, it's good to have you. And thank you for making the time. It's going to be super fun. And I'm really looking forward to you helping a lot of people with your teaching. So grateful to have you here. Let's just start with kind of the nuts and bolts. How long have you been an originator for? And maybe tell us like what your best year was and what maybe 2023 looked like, because I know that there's a big difference between, the best year.
We got to point that out.
Yeah,
we have to go there. Why don't we just focus on the best year?
Okay,
that would be so much more fun. That would make me feel so much better about myself this morning.
Well, your 2023 is probably a lot better than most. So go ahead and feel free to brag about it.
There's a lot of pressure after 2020 and 2021. So been in the mortgage business, gosh, over 25 years now. So a very long time. Best year was about 170 million in 2021. So that was a fantastic year. 2023, when comparing it to what normal used to look like, we had a pretty solid year. But of course, after having those type of numbers, it's hard to go back. So 2023, we were right under 70 million, which is still a strong year, but not as strong as the previous years. And would love to get back and hover around that 100 million a year would be ideal for us.
Congratulations on some incredible numbers. And I want to put something into perspective. So in 2021, when you did 170 million, your average loan amount's not terribly high. So how many units was that?
No, our average loan amount is 250,000 that year. We recently just raised it to 350. So our average loan amount is not very high. So it was north of I want to say 500 units.
That's smoking. We need to unpack that a little bit because to be able to do that many units requires, some great relationships for sure. The management of an effective database, the procurement of business development, and a great team. So let's start with just referral sources. How many realtors do you work with right now? And you just made a move from the Atlanta metro area, I believe, to Florida. And I know that a part of that is you're kind of rebuilding new relationships in Florida on top of it. So how many agents do you have that you work with and any other referral sources? And what's your approach to developing those relationships?
Good question. Lots of questions. So I'll try to keep in the forefront of my mind what you asked.
I tend to pack 7 or 8 into one.
Kind of feel like how my kids now feel when I ask them a question, when I tell them to do 10 things and they're like, can we just start with one? So yes, I recently transitioned about 8 months ago from the Marietta, Georgia area to the St. Augustine, Florida area. I do still have my office in Marietta because I'm from Georgia, been there 46 years. So that is really the bread and butter of my business. We do have a location that I'm sitting in today in St. Augustine. So we are expanding. But really everything looks different from us or for us from a team. As far as an agent group, we have a solid group of about 25 that I would say refer us on a consistent basis. Of that 25, we don't have any partners. I don't want to mislead anyone into thinking that we have one referral source that is feeding us 70, 80 deals a year. That's not the case. We have our core 25 that we can usually depend on them from anywhere from 2 to 8 transactions each. And then from that, it's a lot of just other agents that send us 1 or 2 transactions a year. So we have very effective systems, but we don't have, our core group is about 25 agents. As far as the transition to Florida, a lot of what I have been doing is just meeting people, really just getting involved in the community, in women's groups and meeting agents just to really cultivate relationships and getting in front of their teams as far as doing, presentations on really how to build a business and how to scale their business that has allowed me to move my primary residence from Georgia to Florida, but still effectively run a business in Georgia. And that's been really my main focus.
So what I heard, what I heard there was that you're doing I think this is a really interesting point in the conversation because you're kind of remaking yourself, like I said, in a new market, which sometimes I like to ask people the question, if I required you to move to an entirely different city and you didn't have your database and you didn't have any resources of any kind, what would be the first things that you would do? And I don't have to ask you that question because you're kind of doing that. I mean, you still have your database, but what I heard you say is that you're getting out there and you're getting social. You're putting yourself, you're inserting yourself into circles where you can meet other agents in these women's groups. And then from there, you have a value proposition that you're bringing to that conversation, which is presentations to them about how they can scale your business. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. And in this move, really, because, earlier in my career, when I got into the business, I was a single mom. I had to hustle. I had to work. And my business was created foundationally based on need. I needed deals. I was willing to work with anybody. I had to get out there and hustle and make it happen. At this point of my life, I say I'm more creating a life by design, where I'm positioning myself to be around people that I like and that I want to hang out with. Not that I don't have a lot of those people in Atlanta because I do. But here I'm just really focused on making sure I'm putting myself in circles to be around people that I want to spend my time with and then help them build their business and take it to the next level. And then in return, get the opportunity to be their partner in that endeavor.
I love that. And I want to focus a little bit in a moment on like what that presentation looks like and how you've developed it. But before we do, I want to make a statement of opinion, and then it's kind of like a question to you to see if you agree with me,
Okay.
which is I remember vividly the same scenario, which was for me, which was when I first started in the business. I was hungry for deals. So I would go out and I would engage in a relationship with anybody that had a heartbeat and a pulse and and had realtor
Right.
on their business
Right.
card. And
Willing to speak to you, right?
yeah, and I would engage in a lot of dysfunctional relationships. I mean, ones that just were not healthy for me, where I was subservient. And it wasn't until which time that I figured out that I needed to kind of shift the whole perspective on this thing and look at it from a perspective of I'm going to be selective as to who I work with. That's when my business exploded. And I think that a lot of the time there's a misunderstanding out there. And again, this is where the question comes in for you that
Okay.
like if you were to turn the clock back to the beginning and had you had that same mentality that you are approaching these things with now, which is to be selective and to work with people that you truly enjoy working with, do you think that it would have been successful back at the beginning? Or do you think that you had to, because I think that a lot of people could hear what you said and say, oh, well, yeah, she
Right.
can afford to be selective because she has
Right.
25 agents, so she doesn't have anything to worry about. But
Right.
is it the horse that comes in front of the cart or the cart that comes in front of the horse? Because personally, I think it's that mindset is needed regardless of where you're at right now. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I agree. And I think that mindset is what is needed. But I also think it depends on the filter through which you view your life at that point. At that point in my career, yes, I was willing to work with anybody because I was hungry and I was learning and I didn't have the self confidence. Also, my self worth is a lot different now than it was then. So, when you, let me see how to answer this question. People are going to treat you the way you allow them to treat you. So the more self-worth you have and the more confident you are in what you have to offer, I think the more respect that you demand. Not in a way that I think I'm better than anybody, but I'm going to be respectful of your time. I know what I bring to the table. We're going to have a successful relationship together versus me being at your beck and call and being your whipping girl, for when you need something and you need it now. So I mean, looking back on it, it would have been great if my 21-year-old self had had that type of confidence. But I was in a business that I wasn't super confident in what I was doing at that point. And I think it took time for me to feel comfortable with having those conversations, which too, for me, I had this limiting belief in that I needed the numbers behind me. I needed to have this level of success to be able to draw the line in the sand and say, you know what? I can't do that for you right now because I have a commitment. Back then I didn't have the confidence to be able to do that I do now.
We're gonna continue to go deeper on this right now because it's too important, and we'll get to the presentation stuff in a minute. But self-worth, that's a very important
Yeah.
phrase that you used. And yes, I mean, I've said this for like a long time now, probably like 30 years, that, at the end of the day, the most successful salespeople are the people that have the most confidence in their
Right.
product. And in this business, the product is you. So
Right.
having confidence in yourself is critical. So this notion of self-worth, how did you build it? Now, you just referenced the fact that like you have the numbers behind you that
Right.
infuses you with self-worth, but
Right.
there are other elements to it as well. So how have you gone about building your self-worth and your confidence to a degree? Because I know you very well, and if there's one thing that's for damn sure is that you're confident, and it's something. I mean, for sure you're confident, and I love your confidence, and I think everybody else does in our coaching program too, because you're inspiring. So, what do you do on a consistent basis to continue to build your self-worth?
I mean, there's a lot of things. As you know, I'm very disciplined with my morning routine. I know I have to fill my buckets first for those buckets to be able to overflow and take care of others. So, self-confidence for me comes from many different areas. One, it's having a clear mind. It's having a, healthy body. To be able to do the things that I need to do. So that consists of working out, eating the right things, um, you know, trying not to drink as much wine because that doesn't really bring any clarity to my mind. And just really, doing the work. I listen to a lot of books. I read a lot of books. I meditate. I have coaches. I put my spiritual health first. So it comes from a lot of different areas. Um,
I
so
think
yeah,
that I think that what you described there, underneath all of those disciplines, is maybe one of the more important components of self-worth, which is doing what you say that you're going to do.
absolutely.
And that's one thing that I know about you. Like
Yes.
when you say that you're committed to doing something, you follow through with it. There's no question, there's no doubt. You're going to do it. And I want everybody to understand that that is such a key piece, because if you make commitments that you don't follow through on, you start to erode your trust in yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's not something that I see you do. So
Right.
give us a glimpse of what eating healthy looks like in your world. I mean, look, I've partied with you too, so I know that I know that you can eat unhealthy when you want to, but I know that most of the time you're very disciplined, which is why you
Yeah.
are in great shape and you look much younger than you are. You're welcome for that compliment, by the way.
Thank you.
And but I think it's very important what you said, because your energy has everything to do with how you show up. So the fuel that you put into your body and
Mhm.
or the toxins that you put in that can slow you down have an impact. So I'd love to
Right.
hear a little bit about your health and wellness. And then
Okay.
I'd love you to also share a couple of books that you think are really good for people to take in that would help them with their self-worth and personal development.
Ooh. Okay. So first, the easy one. I take my health very seriously. So I have a functional medicine doctor that I work with, that I've been working with for 4 years. I get all my blood work done quarterly, so I'm very clear on where my body stands internally as well as externally. I focus on my gut health. I have custom blend supplements that I take. It took us about 2 years to really dial those in. I think you'll remember one of our retreats, my vitamin box that I
Oh
left
yeah.
that had like 8,000 different vitamins. Well, finally, after 2 years of working with my functional medicine doctor, now I have a custom blend. So all my vitamins are custom blend based on exactly what my body needs. I drink a gallon of water a day. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to give myself time to have space to really think. I get my workouts done every morning about 4:45. Then when I get home from about 5:45 till 6:30, that is the time that I spend with my spouse. So it's very important for us to have that time to just talk and connect in the mornings. So that's super important to me. And then I get ready and I take our youngest kid to school and then come straight to work. As far as diet, I mean, with working with the functional medicine doctor, we know that my body makeup really excels and performs great when I do a Mediterranean diet. So I eat a lot of lean meats. I do eat carbs. I'm not so restrictive. I try to reduce gluten, but I'm not completely gluten free. Some of my testing shows that I would probably function a little bit better if I was completely gluten free. But I also live. I also feel like there has to be, moderation to be able to balance my spiritual life, my health, my personal life, my life as a wife, my life as a mother, my life as a daughter, all these other things. And then as business leader, and then the people that work for me and my partner. So I, you know, I'm, I wouldn't say restrictive. I know what I need to do and I follow it about 98% of the time. But I do give myself grace and my weekends are mine. Um, And then sleep. Sleep is a big thing for us. We make sure that we sleep at least 8 hours a night, which was something that I transitioned to when I moved to Florida. Before moving here, I slept probably 4 to 6 hours a night, but I've realized I need sleep. So sleep is a big component. I like being in bed by 8 o'clock at night, because if I'm not in bed by 8, I can't get up at 4.
People are wondering when you have time to watch Netflix or any
Maybe on the
series.
weekends.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, I was there for that
Which I
2%.
still do.
I was there for that 2% of the time when you went off the rails and
Right.
were in Italy for 2
Right.
weeks.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
we were on a Mediterranean diet times 10 there. We just ate a
exactly.
tremendous amount of food. And one of the things that I want to
Because
point
you
out,
ordered. It's because you were ordering,
yeah.
not me.
Well, one of the things that I want to point out is that you didn't hear in her list sugar. And I think that that's something that if you're working with a functional medicine doctor, which you just described, and by the way, when I was going through some of the stuff that I mentioned to you a few months ago, I was working with a functional medicine doctor that Ryan Grant referred me to.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some context around what that's like. I mean, one of
Right.
the things that they really want you to eliminate for your gut microbiome is the consumption of sugar. And
Right.
when you do, it's pretty miraculous as to what happens
Mm-hmm.
with your mental acuity, your energy level, your sleep is better, et cetera. So I
Mm-hmm.
presume you don't take in too much sugar. Is that right?
No, I don't eat a lot of sugar.
Books. Talk to me. You're an avid
Oh, I
reader.
got so many books. You're going to put me on the spot.
Just give us a couple that popped to mind.
I have a list. So one that is one of my favorite is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Not sure if you've read that recently.
No. I mean, I've read Think and Grow Rich, but I've never read.
Fantastic book.
Okay.
That is one of my favorite that I have really, really enjoyed. One of my all-time favorites that I've read with you several times, The Four Agreements. I think that book is so simple, yet so profound. If you can just live your life by those four agreements, everything else works.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else works. And then one that I'm rereading right now, actually with my older two children, is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So we recently decided as a family, for those of you that don't know, I have a 23-year-old son, a 19-year-old son, and an 8-year-old son. So lots of personalities, lots of different ages. My older two children still live in Georgia. So we decided we set up a quarterly family meeting. So we read a book a quarter. And then it's really important to me that now that I'm long distance, that we're pouring into our children. So the best way to do that was pick a book to help them establish a foundation for their financial future, make sure that I'm pouring into them. So those are my top 3 that I'm reading right now.
I love that last part. That's a tremendous takeaway. A couple of years ago, Trey bought me a book for Christmas, and it was a book on meditation by Sam Harris, who I think you may know because you hear his voice in the contemplations that I create all the time. But the cool part about it was that he bought that same book for himself, and he said, I thought that we could both read this together and talk about it. And that's a really tremendous gift that you're giving to your kids, is to learn together, right? Like that's really what it's about. Like, I mean, depending upon the book, I mean, if it's a fantasy book, then maybe you're not learning, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it's like an extended movie that you're watching together, right? Like that takes like a month or whatever. So that's a nice takeaway. So thank you for sharing that. Let's migrate back to the business realm for a moment and talk about these presentations that you do. And sorry to whiplash you around, but I got intrigued by some of the stuff you're sharing. So you go to these women's groups, you connect with these agents, and then what's the entry point of, first of all, offering to get together with them and to do some training? Like, how do you, like, let's hear the scripting. Like, what
a lot,
me,
the word scripting, that's not, for all of you that know me well, know that I'm not in Scriptapalooza, because I am not a big scripter. So for me, it just really happens organically. I mean, I have made sure that I've positioned myself in different groups within my community and really just get to know them. And when I get to know them on a personal level, organically, they've asked me to help them in business, or if systems come up, different ones of them have been building different businesses, a few of them real estate, and just talking about, what are some of your challenges? And then they always ask, how did you move here and then still run your business in Georgia? And ultimately, it all boils to having the right systems in place and having the right team around me. And then I have a 50-slide presentation that I just go through with them, and we call it the Holly Walther Lending Team Experience. And I really just walk them through what it looks like when a client works with us from the client perspective. And then I incorporate, some of the touches that the agent experiences on the other side, and then just really help walk them through how I did that. It's been super helpful, especially with agents in the light of the recent NAR rulings that we've all seen and talked about. I know we've been blowing up the WhatsApp thread with that. But because a lot of these agents also don't know how to do these presentations. And in my presentation on the experience, I show them, like in a buyer consult, how I do that online, how I share my screen, how I show them. And then over the past few weeks have really incorporated and tweaked that by showing them, these are the things that you're going to really need to be able to do to show your value proposition when you have the opportunity to meet with buyers and future clients. So it's really just kind of organically evolved based on having conversations and meeting them where their need is. Because a lot of people, especially in the area I'm in, other agents are trying to run a business in other markets. And then like me, they've moved their family to Florida because they want all the other benefits of being here, but they still need that business. And then they want to grow this business. So just showing them tools, technologies, time management, so many of the things that we've worked on in coaching over the years and how they can apply that to their business, no matter what it is.
Okay, so I want to synthesize some of this and maybe expand slightly. But before we do, I need to call bullshit because you did win Scriptapalooza in Laguna.
I did, but everyone seems to forget that.
With a very creative script that brought the house down. And I think that was the first Scriptapalooza, in fact.
It was the very first one. I remind Craig of that all the time.
And you defeated Josh Medel and Craig and Ryan Grant. So that's pretty noteworthy for all those that know who those players are in the equation. But this is a PG rated show, so we won't talk about what
we can't talk about what I said, but I did win. That's
yes,
the takeaway. The takeaway is I won.
Yes, you did. Okay, so there's some brilliance. I want to pull this apart for people and then validate it. So the first thing that you're doing is you are giving them a presentation on your system of customer service. And one of the things that's often missed with that as a value proposition, and Caleb and I have talked about this a lot because, Caleb, as an implementer of the perfect loan process has the same philosophy. Is it's so much easier to sell your system and your team than it is to sell you.
Right.
So the focus can be taken off of you where you don't have to be bragging about yourself. And it's woefully uncomfortable for most people to speak of themselves in that kind of light because it's very vulnerable.
Right.
And you can put it on others and your system. And that's exactly what I did. That's what Caleb does. And that's what I'm hearing that you do. And I want everybody to take that away. Now, obviously, you have to have a great system to be able to provide that. And you may be saying, well, it's hard to have a great system right now because I'm down to a skeleton crew because I've had to scale back so much. You know what?
I'm there too.
Yeah. And
we're all there.
Yeah. And I developed the perfect loan process in 1999, which was a horrible year. I mean, that's when you develop it, was when you have the time to, and then you start to create separation. The other thing that I heard you say that I want to tease apart a little bit more and for us to maybe even brainstorm on a little bit because it is so fresh is the NAR ruling. And, I had I put a post in the WhatsApp threads, the other day about my conversation with Alan Taman, and that'll be released here in a couple of days.
Right.
We're recording this episode at the end of March and Alan will be released April 1st. One of the things that he says in that conversation is that real estate agents all have a presentation in place that they've practiced hundreds of times for listings.
That's
They
right.
know how to sell their services to a seller and justify their fees to a seller, but none of them have a presentation that justifies their fees and services to a buyer, and they all need one right now.
Right.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you're showing them your presentation
Mhm.
to a buyer and
Yes.
utilizing that as a mechanism for an entry point into a conversation to, hey, do you need help cultivating your presentation to a buyer given the changes that are about to happen? Is that what you're saying? Or
Correct. Yes. And showing them, I've been doing role play, like walking them through
Mhm.
what we do and then teaching them how they can do it themselves
So
and the
what's that?
tools and resources.
Sorry, what's that role play look like? Talk to me about that.
So when I do a buyer consult, once I have them pre-approved or depending on where they are in the process, we set up a Zoom call, just like how you and I are doing now. And we go through step by step, the pre-approval process. So for me, I walk the agent through that. It's an email, then it has videos, and I walk them through the whole process of what that looks like, how I share my screen, how I educate the buyer on this is what you told me you wanted. This is what based on your preferred payment of $3,500, this is what that looks like. You qualify for X. I walk them through the whole presentation. And then we go back through when we say, okay, in your role, what are the core things that you have to present? And then what type of presentation can you develop or can I help you develop? It's something that is on our matrix to try to have completed in April is really create a program that they can just have a plug and play. So that I actually create the presentation for them, tell them kind of the things to record, and then they plug and play it in their business. But I just go through and I let them role play, pull something up on their screen, pretend that I'm their buyer and give me their presentation, or what are their pain points on that I can help them create to get past, knowing what their value proposition is and how to present. A lot of them don't even know how to really present in a Zoom because they've been so programmed to meet the client in person. And then they don't really know how to have the discussion about the possibility of the buyer paying them.
I'm just taking a note here. So teaching your agents how to present in Zoom. I think that you could add in there, if you haven't already thought about this, and you probably have, the question of, look, one of the, maybe it's not a question, it's more of a statement, but it's like, look, one of the things that I want to make sure that we cover here is me having a great understanding of what your value proposition is to a buyer, how you are going to present yourself to a buyer, so I can validate you and edify you as a third neutral party when you refer someone to me. So
Absolutely.
when I talk to that client for the first time, I'm actually sharing with them the things that I know about you that are incredibly valuable, and I'm helping you justify your fees,
Right.
rather than you having to be the only one that has to do it.
Right.
Which is a tremendous opportunity right now to be leveraging relationships.
Absolutely.
The question that I have is there, like, have you run in agents thus far that are just like, look, I have absolutely no idea what my value proposition is? And if so, do you have like some questions, like some open-ended question prompts to help them uncover it that you'd be able to share?
Yes, to answer your question, I think that there's a lot of agents out there that are struggling with their value proposition, especially depending on their experience, depending on what type of platform they've been working from, where are their leads coming from. Yes, I absolutely think that there's a gap on that. Do I have those questions dialed in as far as what I'm asking them? No, because last week, when I did a few agent presentations when I was back in Atlanta, that's when all of the stuff started surfacing. And then that's when I made it a mission to kind of have an agenda to put that presentation together for them by the end of April. So they have that to incorporate. So no, I don't have those questions mapped out, but I know that that is definitely a need of what agents need in this market.
We should probably get something going on that kind of crowdsourcing within both the Leadership 360 family and the Loan Atlas community.
Absolutely.
Of what are what are the questions that you should be asking your agents right now to help them uncover what their value proposition is? And one of the
Right.
things that I think may be a part of it. I mean, we're still very early in
Yeah.
this whole process of really understanding what this all means. But I would think that there's almost a Chinese menu of services that a real
Right.
estate agent will offer. So this is what I charge to negotiate a contract. This is what I charge to show property. This is what I charge to help you set up ancillary services, et
Hmm.
cetera, et cetera. And asking them questions that will help them justify those fees is going to be a really, really
Right.
important part of the partnership. Okay. Anything else that you'd want to say about the NAR ruling that you think is important and noteworthy that you're doing right now?
I mean, I'm just helping our agents and our referral partners focus on the opportunity. Just like when, LO comp came out and we all had to work through that, it's the same situation. I think great things can come out of this. They've just got to, take the time to map out their systems, to know their value proposition, to really revisit their business and look at what's possible versus what's been taken away. Because I think that there is massive opportunity in this shift, just like any shift in the market. It just depends on what filter they're looking at it through and then how they adapt to what they've been given.
And do you think that listing agents are going to become a more viable source of business as a result of this? Is that your sense? And if
I
so,
don't know. I think it really depends on area because, like Georgia, for instance, there's been a buyer brokerage agreement in the GAR, the Georgia real estate contract, for as long as I can remember. So it's not really that the commission's going away. It's just, if the listing agent's still negotiating it, it can't be an MLS, but it doesn't mean it still can't be paid. So I think it'll really just depend on how the market adapts over the next few weeks to see. I mean, the assumption that would be that the listing agent would be sitting, in a better position of opportunity, but someone still has to show them the house, negotiate. You still can't, a lot of people do not allow dual agency depending on the brokerage. So I think there's so many things that we still have to uncover and see how it's going to play out.
yeah, for sure. If it were to go like that extreme, which I don't think it will, then listing agents would have to have a whole team of people because they just wouldn't have the capacity to basically provide the types of services that a buyer would need on top of all the things that they need to do to represent the seller, which is the wacky thing about the whole thing is that like they're looking to remove, yeah, wacky, right?
Yeah.
Where'd I come up with that word from? It's the weird thing about this whole thing is that like they're trying to create some type of fairness and non-conflict of interest. And yet at the
Right.
same time, we could actually be accomplishing the opposite where more and more people have dual representation if it's allowed, which is the greatest conflict of interest in all
Exactly.
of it. So, okay, let's transition to the subject matter of being a female, if that's the
Here we
politically
go.
correct term, or woman,
Here we go.
girl. let's
Since
see.
I look so young, girl, we'll go
Yes.
with girl.
Yes. I mean, you and I, look, we've done a lot of personal development work together.
Yeah.
We went to Dr. Joe Dispenza for a week and we're at the
Yeah.
same workshop. So we can talk this language really well. I'm going, by the way, on Friday to the advanced follow-up retreat in San
I'm
Diego. So
jealous. I'm
yeah, I'm
jealous.
super excited to be there for 4 days with him. One of the things that, well, I know that you're a big believer in is energy
Yeah.
and just to create clarification for everybody, it's like when I say masculine energy and feminine energy, I don't mean man and woman. I mean, I have a healthy degree, I think, of feminine energy in my personality, but I'm
I'd agree to that. No, just
predominantly,
kidding.
predominantly masculine, but I have some feminine energy. And I know a lot of women who have strong masculine energy and as an example. And I think that it takes that energy to be successful and a go-getter and dynamic and to follow through on commitments and to be
Yeah.
strategic, whether you're a man or a woman, to be successful in this business. So I know that you cultivate and utilize that energy within you to have the success that you've had. But I also know that then there's this other piece of you that
Mhm.
takes care of Jake, who's 8 years old, and
Mhm.
has been nurturing him as a mom and nurturing as a mom in general for over 20 years, and wants to be a loving and comforting and supportive wife to CB, and all of
Yeah.
these things. That's a really interesting thing that you have to turn on and off throughout your day consistently. And I think that for not just women, for men too, who want to go home and be more present with their family, more connected with their family, which is cultivating more of their feminine. There's a lot for people to learn about you in this realm. So just go run with it wherever you want to go with it. But I know that you're passionate about helping people understanding how to play both roles and to do it effectively.
So, do you want to ask me a question, or do you want me just to talk about my opinion on how I do
Yeah,
that?
I want you to. I've done too much talking already. I want you to talk about your opinion.
No, I mean, I think it's a I mean, I think it just depends on where you are. Like earlier in my career, like how we spoke about earlier, I had to be, more of a hustler. I was a single mom. I had to get out there and make it happen. I also, the filter that I saw the world through at that time was that my worth was defined by my accomplishments. So I was very driven, and I would, I had to fight at certain times, not literally fight, but really be more aggressive and get myself in the right rooms to be able to have the same opportunities. Where I'm at now, um, I want to be more authentic in who I am. I am at the place that I'm in my life now. I'm seeing that, I'm enough just the way that I am. And I don't really need to recreate myself to be a version of Tim, as an example. I need to be the best version of Holly, and whatever that looks like, and be confident and secure in myself. And that takes time. That takes time to really, listen to my soul versus all the chatter around me and trying to recreate myself, to be somebody else.
Is it challenging for you sometimes to turn off the driver in you that works hard at work and then comes
Yes.
into the home world?
It's
Yeah.
very hard for me to turn that off
What
because
do
I'm a
you,
doer. So I want to get things done, and I want to get them done now. And I have a way. And I want to do go, 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 go. But the older I get, and as I approach midlife, I see that really, earlier in my life, I accepted this concept that you don't deserve it unless it's hard. And
mm,
so I created this whole lifestyle and mindset around I have to do it, and it has to be hard. So, for me, as I've aged, when things come easy, then I question it. And it's really accepting that things don't have to be hard, things can be easy. And it's more about the worth and the experience than the achievement. So, like for me, I guess a better example is, I love doing the production. But for me now, midlife, the production numbers are great, but I focus more on the production numbers provide an opportunity to my people. It makes their life better. And if we're hitting certain numbers, then that also means we change the lives of that many more families versus, the accolades because we did a certain amount of production that year.
how does that feel? Um, how did that feel to shift the intention of the outcome?
It feels amazing, but it is also, there are moments when it's very frightening, because when you have, bought into this concept that your identity is connected to this number and this level of achievement, it's a reprogramming. And it's taken time. It's taken me the past few years to be okay with if the production looks differently, that's okay, as long as it's more like of a soul led purpose versus an ego.
So cool that you're talking about this. I'm today
Yeah.
I'll be practicing my presentation for La Jolla at our
Yeah.
master's retreat, and it's on this exact subject matter, which
Okay.
is what is your fuel? What is
Yeah.
your purpose? And as I've studied the topic recently a lot in preparation for designing the presentation and the process that we're going to be going through as a group, um, it's become pretty evident from all the research that I've done that that what you just stated is super factual from a psychological perspective, which is that the more that we make the outcome about us, the
Mhm.
less energy it gives to us. And
Right.
the more that we make the outcome about something bigger than us
Mhm.
and about others, which creates that oneness,
Mhm.
the greater and more potent the energy it is that fuels us. So the
Mhm.
fact that you're making this about your team, how many people do you have on your team, by the way?
Right now, there's only myself plus four. So there's five of us. We call ourselves the Fabulous Five. So, like back in 2021, there were 13 of us. And so we've really cut everything and really redesigned what it looks like
Mhm.
as we move forward. We can still do the same. Like I said, our goal, we could still do 100 million, but it's not about the number. It's about how many families can we change? What value can we bring to those families? And then how does that achievement affect the families within my team? And how does that change their future and then their children's future? So it's just a different mindset.
How do you work with the frightening part? So, I mean, that's really vulnerable of you to share
Mhm.
that. And that's the human part of the experience, which is that you
Right.
have this intention to serve others, that being your team, and serve a bigger cause. And yet there are times where the human personality and the ego clicks in and says, my numbers aren't big enough. And then all of a
Right.
sudden, next thing you know, it's about you,
Right.
which is, which is what
Right.
the ego does, right? I mean, it's
Right.
about self-preservation. So
Yeah.
no shame in that, just
Right. It's just a
normal.
fact.
And yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything you do to work with that? To like remind yourself of like, wait a minute, there's a bigger purpose here to what I'm doing.
Well, we recently, my husband and I, we really broke down kind of our goals and like our life purpose, starting at 40 years to 5 years to 1 year to 90 days. And we kind of mapped our life out in sections from like mind and spirit, finances, relationships, the impact that we want to have in the world, and different subjects. And then we orchestrated that into a plan. And when we started that, we started kind of like with with the end in mind. So I started with the eulogy. We did that in Mexico, and then I took it to a whole nother level and really getting an understanding of what do I want my legacy to be? Because for so long, when my legacy when my worth was tied to a number, and then you get to those numbers and you get those achievements. I mean, honestly, in 2021, the more volume I did, the less fulfilled I was
Mm.
because I had like envisioned when I got to that point in my life, I think the skies would open and everything would just be great. And it was great. The financial benefit was great, but I just felt like I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I didn't want my legacy and my impact to be, okay, she closed 170 million. That's great. But 5 minutes after I'm cold, nobody's going to care about that achievement. So we started with the eulogy on what would we want to be said to us? What would our impact have been on the world? And then broke that down into kind of subcategories that I just said and then put it into a plan. And I've created kind of a vision, a mission statement, a vision board around that. So that gives me clarity. And that's what drives me. The part about it, like CB and I were talking the other day, I said, now that we have this all mapped out on paper, it's great. But there's a lot of fear around that because now I feel like I can't use the excuse that I don't know what to do from here because it's all mapped out. I've mapped it out. Now the only person responsible for me leaving that legacy is myself. So I can't blame it on anybody else because I have clarity, I have intention, I know what my purpose is, but now it's on me to get up every day and make sure that I'm moving towards that purpose versus getting lost in this concept of the busy of being busy, if any of that makes sense.
That makes a ton of sense. That's super powerful. I mean, like, I love the notion of starting at the end and then working your way back into a 90-day practical implementation piece. The last part that you said was so powerful. So I'm pulling up my presentation. I'm going to spoiler alert this thing. I want to read you a couple of quotes that really
Okay.
very much substantiate the things that you're saying. So the first one is from Viktor Frankl,
Oh,
who
I love
wrote A
that
Man's
book.
Search for Meaning, which I just read
Yes.
for the second time recently. And for those that don't know about that book, it's an epic book about um, a psychiatrist who was in Auschwitz and survived it, obviously, to write the book. And It's an incredible book. And the quote that I'm going to read right now is pretty deep and intense, but it validates very much this last part about the responsibility that
Mm-hmm.
you just articulated. He said, ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of life is, but rather must recognize that it is he who is asked. In a word, each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. To life, he can only respond by being responsible.
Mm,
And
love that.
I know that's pretty deep, but that's everything that I just heard you say, which gave me the chills as I read it, because I realized, man, that's exactly what you did, was you
Yeah.
took responsibility for how you want to live the rest of your life and how you want it to end. And nobody else, as you said, can be responsible for the execution of that plan. I think it's so beautiful that you and CB did that together.
Mm,
Um, I'm really proud of you guys. I'm really happy for you
thank
that you had that
you.
experience. That's super
Yeah.
cool. The other quote that I'll read is from the famous psychologist Carl Jung. And he said, if you can't find anything more meaningful than your own existence, then you will experience life as meaningless and empty,
Mm,
which I'm hearing that you've made that transition in your business as well to, understanding that this is about your team as much as it is about you and their longevity and their and the protection um, of their job security, et cetera. So super beautiful. Thank you, Holly.
yeah, of course.
What about let's stick in this same realm and maybe you've
Yeah.
kind of answered this, but I'm feeling called to ask it anyways because I think that there could be a deeper answer. I mean, you're a very self-motivated and driven person, and I think that's a superpower of yours. Um, what is your catalyst? Like, what's the real purpose behind, the things that you do? What gets you up in the morning and what drives you to have, you know, success on a business level and a life level?
I mean, I've just always believed that if I was here, I was meant for more. That a lot of what drives me now is, I mean, we all have trauma, we all have adversity, things that we've experienced in our lives. But for me, I want mine to have purpose. So I want to make sure that in the second phase of my life, that I feel that everything that we experience for a reason. It's just our decision. Do we make ourselves the victim or the victor of that circumstance? And I am very clear that the second half of my life mission is to share those experiences. Now, whatever capacity and whatever that looks like, that will organically continue to unfold. But to take those experiences to help others and turn them into something great. My biggest fear is having regrets in the end, or, after my passing, being told that I wasted opportunity, that I was given things that only I had the power to do something with. And I let fear or insecurity or the worry of what others thought of me keep me from moving in that purpose. And when I reflect back on the first half of my life, there are so many times that I tried to make myself somebody else because I admired who they were versus doing my own work and being the best version of myself.
Mm.
So that's what's important to me.
So another quote, since we're on a roll, from Pablo Picasso, the famous artist. He said, "The meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away."
I
And I
love that.
believe that that's what you just described yet again. Maybe you should give this presentation in La Jolla instead of me. I'll take the day off. Um, wow.
You need me
Uh,
to facilitate your presentation with you?
Maybe so, maybe so. What are you working on a personal level right now? I know that you're always doing work on yourself. You've gone to Tony Robbins events. You've been to Dr. Joe Dispenza. You read a
Mhm.
lot of personal development. Like, what are you working on right now?
Right now, my husband and I are working on being passionate. Like, I guess the best way to describe it, as Tim knows, in the first half of our marriage, my husband was a firefighter. I'm the mortgage lady. We have these 3 kids. I mean, we're just going through life. We're surviving. We are thriving, but we're also surviving. In this next phase of our life, it's really important to me that we be purpose, passion partners. So live a life of purpose, full of passion, and we do it as a partnership. So that's why we're doing the work, and we've really worked on, okay, what do we want our life to look like? What does that look like? What are the action items that we have to achieve to be able to create this life together? Because with him being a firefighter, when we moved here, he retired. But I mean, 35% of the first portion of our marriage, he was gone at a firehouse. And knowing that we're at our midlife, what can we do and create together to make sure that we make a change in the world, but that it's also purposeful and that we're passionate about it and we do it together. And then in doing that, what type of legacy are we leaving for our kids? We both talk to our children, our older children, multiple times a day. I mean, when I get up early in the morning, when I'm driving to the gym at 4:30, I talk to the middle one who's now going to the fire academy. And then after the gym, I'm talking to the older one who's getting off shift because he works nights at the police department. But not only have these strategic conversations with them, but also what legacy are we leaving them? And that's how we came up with the quarterly family meetings that are very strategic based on a book. Are we giving them financial literacy? Do they know what our will and trust look like? Do they know, really having them involved in all of our decisions so that as our life evolves and changes, they have purpose in our life as well. And I think I was just rambling. I don't know that I totally answered your
No, there are surely people listening that are getting a tremendous amount of great ideas on a personal level as to how to be intentional about their marriage and the connection and the future of their marriage, as well as intentional about their connection with their children. Are there any books? I keep coming back to books. I'm like, I feel like you're a librarian. Excuse
I
me, Mrs.
don't.
Librarian, what
Like
aisle
when you
should I go?
ask me off the top of my head, then I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I have a million books,
Well,
but I
on
can't.
relationships, like, are there any noteworthy relationship books that you read?
I haven't really read any books on relationships, to be totally honest. I'm scrolling through all my books and Audible. Um, I mean, I buy 100 books. Like I said, we both listened to Outwitting the Devil and read it recently. Um,
No, that's okay. I mean, if you come up with something off the top of your head, feel free to share it. But I just think the fact that I mean, look, it actually doesn't even need to be a quote unquote relationship book. The fact that you are reading books together nurtures the relationship. I mean, you're growing together is what I'm hearing, which is all of you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In our spiritual relationship too, in our faith, and what does that look like? So yeah, just really putting our marriage first and then being selective and intentional in what we do with our time, and supporting each other in those choices.
Now, if you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self
Ooh,
right now. So
don't do mortgages. I'm just kidding.
oh, that was you just answered the question. I was going to say, what advice would you give her as to how she should live the future life that's in front of her?
Unapologetically.
Say more about that.
Yeah. Like really just be who I was created to be versus the version of myself that I was for so long based on what I thought others needed and expected of me. Again, I had a great childhood. I have great parents. I have a great family. I mean, they didn't do anything wrong, but I bought into this concept at an early age that I had to be the overachiever to be loved and to be valuable. So then, I created this life around that when just showing up in my true authentic self was always enough.
Yeah, that's one of the areas that you and I have, one of several areas that I think you and I are very, very similar personalities. So do you ever find yourself like, um, people ask you for your time and you commit to it, and or you commit your time under your own accord, and then you're angry about it afterwards because you feel overcommitted. Do you ever feel that way?
all the time.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I don't know if you've ever made this connection, but like sometimes when I slow that down and I ask myself, who am I really angry with? I'm angry with me.
Right.
I mean, I've been doing work lately. I'm on a team with Pete Metz and Justice Roberts
Uh-huh.
in group 11 because they were one person short. So I
Yeah.
have three MIGs, and one of my goals is to work on having healthier boundaries in my life. And I've come to the realization that I'm the one who violates my boundaries,
Right.
not anybody else. I violate them by not saying no because I'm afraid that if I say no, that I'm going to fall out of favor or disappoint somebody.
Right.
It's a wicked little hamster wheel to be on, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You got
So
anything
like
to
when you
say
get
about it?
down and it's really about you, it's not about them.
Yeah, and you start to peel back the layers of the onion, you get to the core and you realize, this is just all about me and how I feel about myself and me not
Right.
wanting to disappoint anyone and me buying into
Mm-hmm.
some narrative that I learned when I was younger that I have to be Superman to be able to be loved and all this bullshit, I
Yeah,
mean,
which is so not true.
sounds like my 18-year-old self and your 18-year-old self probably would have been pretty good friends in high school.
Yeah, we would have probably been I won't say
Yeah.
the word, but yeah,
Yeah.
maybe successful.
Yeah. Yeah. We would have definitely been kindred spirits. So, um, hmm, that's really beautiful. Thank you for this time today. You've
Sure.
been you've been
Thank you.
amazing. This is super inspiring to me. It actually gives me a lot to think about as it relates to our time together in the pantry.
Yeah.
Don't take that wrong, listeners. Holly and I are both married, obviously. But in this little recording studio of mine in early May, when we're having you create some content for the Loan
Yeah.
Atlas, I've got some great ideas based upon some of the stuff that you just shared today. And
Oh, good. So you
really,
can map it out for us.
I didn't commit to that. There's that for a boundary.
You also don't commit to be a clean cleanse
I did not. I did not. Yeah.
partner, accountability partner, guys. He'll tell
Correct.
you about cleanses, but then he won't be your accountability partner. So don't ask.
I like to do them on my own. Um, Okay, so yeah, we'll get down and dirty in the recording studio and create some really cool content for the
Very
Loan
cool.
Atlas members in early May. And I'm super excited to see you in La Jolla at the end of April for
Sounds
the
good.
Masters Retreat. And
Yeah.
um, good luck. And
Celebrating the big 47 with you guys.
oh, your birthday is going to be when we're together.
It's Friday. It's the day
Oh,
before. Yeah.
oh no, 2 days before. Are you coming into town early?
I'm coming in Saturday
Okay,
morning.
so the day after your birthday.
Yeah, the day
Okay.
after.
All right, we'll celebrate you anyways. So
Yes.
a day
Yes.
late.
Yes.
All right, Holly, it was good to see you. Go off to your
Yes.
next appointment. Thanks for getting me
Thank you.
up at the
Thank
crack of
you.
dawn to accommodate the East Coast time zone.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone, for listening in, and hope you enjoyed this episode of the 360 Experience.